Bible study. It will be on Friday. At the same time, we have an Arabic school for the kids. It's really very interesting for the kids, which is starting by 7 to end by 8:30. And we have on Wednesday morning the same liturgy, early 5:45 and ending by 7:30 before going to your work or your school. Friday also we have in the morning we have one liturgy from 9 to 11, and after this there is a Bible study for the New Testament. Okay, this is all the announcement that we have, and now we leave the committee of the new project of the church to explain to you exactly what we have.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Ramis Sidarus, and I will be sharing this presentation with Albert. This presentation, as you may have known, is about the church expansion project. Presentation. Can you all hear? Okay, so this presentation is about the church expansion project. Before I go on with the presentation, allow me to share with you some personal reflections and thoughts being an active member of this church since 2009. So basically, back in 1989, when St. Mary was built, the number of Coptic families in Ottawa was about maximum 40 families. And it started with 30, as Tante Salwa is saying. So as you can see, very limited number of families back in 1989. Though they had this vision of establishing a Coptic church in Ottawa. God bless them because of their work and their toil and their we have now a church of about 150 to 200 plus families. So we're seeing an increase here of about 4 to 5 times in 25 years. That's a great blessing. So basically, I'd like by the end of this presentation that you think that this is not about a building. We're not merely building like, a bigger compound or anything like that. But the real aim of this is to serve the growing needs of our congregation, specifically our youth and children. And I'll share with you some examples, and I'm sure that you all live with me from week to week basis. Let's start by Sunday school. So Sunday school classes are running in the church, here in the main building. Some of it, they are in the chorus, the 2 chorus. Some of them are sitting in the mezzanine. Some of them are sitting in the chapel downstairs in the basement. Other classes, they don't have spaces, so they go to Abuna's rooms, Abuna Shnuda and Abuna Marcos. The high school are always in St. John. And because we still don't have spaces, and we're so limited, so the other classes are going to the new house. So that's one example about Sunday school. As you can see, have very limited spaces, let alone sometimes no spaces whatsoever. Let's go to Friday night. You see that there is about 4 to 5 services competing for a space. So we have the family Bible study, we have the kids Bible study, we have the youth meeting, we have the graduate meeting. All of them are competing for space, whether here in the main church or in the basement. We have other activities that we would like to do, like scouts, but unfortunately, because of the lack of spaces, we can't. let's see about the spaces for our youth. We don't have spaces for our youth to practice any sports activities, unfortunately. During the Lenten liturgies, you may have remembered that you remember that the church is very crowded. Some people are lining up in the lobby. Some of them are sitting in the crying room, let alone the problem we have on a weekly basis because of parking spaces. We don't have parking spaces. So all of this just to give you an idea about the problems that we have. This is not about a building as much as to serve the congregation and specifically our youth and our kids. So this presentation is about 45 minutes in length. It is followed by, at the end of it, it's followed by Q&A sessions. So you will have the chance to ask questions. We're going to try to answer your questions as much as we can. If we don't know the answer, we're going to find it for you. So I will start by giving you an outline of this presentation. Basically, I'd like to give you an introduction, which is I did already. I'd like to give you a snapshot about the engineering committee that was established a year ago. I'd like to talk about the feasibility study. This feasibility study, we've basically partnered with another architectural firm in Ottawa to come up with preliminary design options for a new building. What we're seeing here, as you're gonna see in the next few slides, is like two buildings specifically. The first is a service building to service the youth, and the next one would be a larger church, a chapel, classrooms, and everything. We'd like to talk about the financial situation of the church. Engineers are always required to come up with cost estimates for their projects, which we've done, but we also needed to give the church an idea of if we want to go ahead with this project, how we're going to finance the project. So we're going to touch on that. Next steps going forward and Q&A. So currently, the footprint of the church as it stands right now is about 50,000 square feet, which is about 1.3 acres. As you can see on the screen, the church currently owns 3 houses, 9 Parkmount, and 9 Canfield Road, and 15 Parkmount. The feasibility study is recommending the church to go ahead and buy 3 additional houses, which are 11, 13, and 15 Parkmount. 11, 13, and 17 Parkmount. So the idea is to grow this square footage of the land where the church is from 52,000 square feet to about 100,000 square feet. This is about 2.3 acres in area. Now, the feasibility study is looking at phasing the new project into 2 phases. First one being the service building, followed by a larger church. We have studied so many options, as we're going to show you in the next few slides. Options whether to keep the land of the church, do the project on this existing land and property, or otherwise, maybe like buy new land and build the whole project on it, or maybe buy an existing church altogether. So we studied these 3 options specifically, but the recommendation of the committee was to keep the land of the church, expand this land, and carry out the project on the property here, on the land right here. We're going to explain to you how we came up with this recommendation, so on. Now, about the engineering committee, as I told you, established a year ago, have been meeting ever since, consisting of 5 members, Samuel being a representative of the Board of Deacons, 4 other engineers, Magid, Albert, Bishoy, and myself, and 2 minute takers, Paul and Jan. Now, as you can see, the engineering committee is diversified in terms of they are all engineers, they are civil, structural, mechanical, electrical. As a new committee, we had to have goals. What are we trying to achieve? The first goal for us was to really carry out a feasibility study, not based on our own persuasion or recommendation, but also partnering with another architectural firm, discussing with them, exploring with them other options, making sure that whatever option we're going to present to you is the option that will satisfy the needs, the current needs of the church, as well as the future needs. We needed to establish a roadmap, like any other project we're starting with. For any other project, you need a scope of work. After the scope of work, you need to have a team to carry out that scope of work. You need to have cost estimate, and you need to have a schedule. How long will it take me to implement this project or to make that project see light? How long? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? So we were required to provide a roadmap, kind of a vision and a plan for the church to implement the project. We needed to go back and assess the financial situation of the church in terms of our expenses, our revenues, expenses, whether we're gonna ask for other, finance from other institution or not. And also, we needed to explore all the options possible. As I told you, the option we started with was not to build everything right here. We thought also of other options, as we're gonna explain in a few minutes. Most importantly, being a part of this congregation, we were very much interested in knowing your feedback to this project. So I just want to let you know that we're not here to influence you one way or the other. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're gonna present to you all the facts so you can have a good decision, or so you can make an informed decision about the road forward and about how to move forward with this project. We're going to also present to you our recommendations, not only as member of the congregation, but also as professional engineers. So firstly, we needed to select an architectural firm to work with. We reached to our contacts, local architectural firms, and we reached to our brethren in St. George and St. Anthony's Church to draw on their experience with the design and construction of St. George and St. Anthony. They recommended to us one engineering firm, architectural firm, and we have interviewed one firm. We received the 6 proposals. So basically, in order for us to know, okay, so which architectural firm we're gonna give the project to, we had to establish first some selection criteria, some kind of evaluation scheme, if you will, based on 40% technical, meaning how well the architectural firm is gonna meet the scope that we are requesting, how well they understand the project, how about their experience, 40% on technical, 40% on their past experience with other places of worship, specifically Orthodox places of worship. So that's 80, and 20% on price. As you know, the cheapest price is not always the best value. We received the 6 proposals in total. We studied them thoroughly based on this selection criteria. And we recommended one architectural firm that we ended up interviewing. This architectural firm is called N45, but don't worry about the name. It's the same architectural firm that worked in the design and construction of St. George and St. Anthony, basically. It scored high marks in terms of technical, in terms of past experience with Coptic Orthodox churches, Serbian Orthodox churches, Ukrainian Orthodox churches, as well as their price was very competitive. We sat with them, we ran several design progress meetings with them, coordination meetings. They proposed so many options, about 6 or 7, but one option was recommended. They provided us also a comparative layout about that option with St. George. So as you can see, in that option, St. Mary would grow to become a church that seats about 800 people. That's plus or minus, like St. George. The area, the land in St. George was about 2.7 acres. For us, it's about 2.3 acres after we have bought the 3 remaining houses. So as you can see, we have a comparative land, we have a comparative project in terms of a church, but also we're going to have a service building. Now, in the next few slides, we're going to be talking about some preliminary concept designs for this project. So here we're showing basically the ground floor. We're showing that there is a gym. This gym is a basically high school sized gym. We have, it can also be functioning as a stage, have a fitness room. There is a courtyard, the green area, that separates the service building from the church. I'd like to tell you that the details of all the plans are also downstairs. We have an info session for anyone who's interested in looking at the plans or looking at the spaces. Some of us would be downstairs to explain that in details. The second floor plan includes 10 classrooms for Sunday school. We have a guest studio for visiting bishops. We have a meeting room and a lot of additional other functional spaces. When you look at it, you will see that it really satisfies a lot of the needs we currently have. The basement floor plan have a youth and study room. We have a chapel that seats 100. We have a playroom, and we have additional 5 Sunday school classes. So as you can see, we have total 15 Sunday school classes. We have chapel, we have a new church, we have a dining hall, we have a youth and meeting room, we have a gym for our youth and children to practice. The next step was to take the project and the designs and go to the city of Ottawa and meet with the chief planner over there to take their pre-approval on the project. We've done that on June 17th of 2016. We discussed the project in detail with them. They never had any major objections to the project whatsoever. But like any other engineering project, we needed to focus on the zoning because, as you know, once we bought the residential homes, we need to change the zoning to fit a church, a place of worship. So that's one thing that we needed to do. The other thing, they requested additional studies, civil, environmental, traffic. In the plans, there was proposed actually that the new church would have an entrance from Canfield, another entrance from Parkmount, and maybe another entrance from Greenbank. So imagine, once we do that, we need to make sure that these entrances would not hinder the traffic in Greenbank. So we needed to carry out also a traffic engineering study. So as I told you, civil, environmental, traffic engineering studies needed to be done prior to us going forward with the project. All in all, the chief planner in the city of Ottawa was not objecting the project. In the contrary, we found a lot of encouragement. We also needed to hold a pre-consultation meeting with the public. They call it a public consultation meeting. This way, our neighbors right here would be on the same page with us, and they will have acceptance of the project. They will see the value of this project to serve not only the church, but also the community. Now, in the next few slides, we'll explain to you how we're going to do that. And for that, I'd like to call upon Albert to share with us.
So, as Ramit mentioned, in any project, there is a technical side and there is also the financial side. So, for this project, we had to look at the financial situation of the church, and basically, for the last 5-6 years, how the church is actually doing. So looking at this graph here, the blue line represents our income, our revenue every year. And in the last 3-4 years, it's hovering between 750,000 to 850,000 per year. The brown line here is our expenses, and it's pretty much tracking all the time our revenue, except for the last 2 years, you can see there is an increase in our expenses compared to our income. And to understand why we have this and where it's coming from, you can look at the green line, which is our equity. Equity means the houses we bought, like the houses around the church, Santa Mary land. So all of this adds value to the church, but it also increases our expenditure. So we looked at the church debts, what currently the church have to have as debts. And there is mainly 3 numbers here that we can look at. We have 250,000 of personal loans. We have around 300,000 for the houses that we already bought around the church. And we have around 120 for the Santa Mary cottage. So basically, we need to pay off those before we start actually the new building. Mainly the first 2, because we can't demolish a house without paying it off to the bank. So we had to look also at what the current assets that the church has and how we can use this in the future of the project. So we found out that we have the Green Bank land, which we got an appraiser of how much this will cost, and it was between $2.5 to $3 million for this land. We also have the daycare, which is around $1 million, and the cottage with the land around it is around $500,000. So this is assets that we can use to start the project, and as we'll show this later on. So at this stage, we asked ourselves, is there any other options besides expanding the church on this land? We heard a lot of feedback from people saying, why you build a church on a relatively small piece of land? Why you don't go out somewhere and take 8, 9 acres, 10 acres, and build a church and maybe playgrounds, and just, if you dream, you dream big. If you go big. So this was the first idea we had to look for, is let's buy a land and build a new church. So we looked at this option in more details, as I will explain later. And we also looked at, why wait a few years to collect money and then to build a service building? Is there a church out there that we can buy that have a service building, that have enough parking lots that we can use? To do this, we plotted where the congregation of Santa Mary lives in Ottawa. And you can look at this map. All these red dots are basically one of us. Each family of us is represented by a dot here. The 3 crosses represent the 3 churches we have: Santa Mary, SMSM in the middle, and in the northeast is St. George. Looking at this, you can see very clearly that at the south end, which is basically Barhaven, this is where we have most of the congregation, followed by congregation growing at the west side too, at Kanata. Having this in mind, we start looking for lands in these areas. And we were very surprised and happy at the same time to find out that, you can buy a good piece of land, 8, 10 acres, for less than $1 million. So it sounds very interesting to us, and it sounded very promising. The one for buying existing churches, we looked around, Ottawa. We couldn't find anything in the areas we were interested in, but we looked around Ottawa in general, and we found that there is a couple of options of churches around Ottawa. But the problem is, it's no different than St. Mary. All of them are limited in space. All of them have very limited parking spots. There's no buildings around them. There's no land even. So we found that this option is very, very challenging. To put things in perspective, we created like a comparison table between the three options. Option number one being establish the church here, the project here, grow the project and the church. Option number two is build the new church on a new piece of land. And option number three being buy a church, existing church. We set up a few criteria for comparison. The first criteria was market availability. Looking at option number one, for example, we own most of the land. We are only missing 3 houses, and we feel positive about buying these houses. So from the market availability point of view, we have a good chance of getting the 3 properties. Looking at option number 2, finding land, yes, same thing. We easily find a land for this option. When you look at the third option, as I mentioned, this one was very challenging, close to impossible to find the church that can suit our needs. So based on this criteria, option number 3 scored the least. Second criteria was the project cost. How much to get this project off ground? If we look at option number 1, which is expanding the church here, phase 0, which is pre-construction phase, it's stuff that we need to do before we start construction. Total of 2.5 million, which is buying the 3 remaining houses and paying off the debt on the current houses. And then phase number 1, which is building the service building, and option number 2 is the expansion of church, which adds up to be 8.6 and $9 billion. Option number 2, buying the land, is around 1 million, but the construction cost is the same. It doesn't matter where you are going to build the building cost is the same. So the only difference between these two options is the phase 0, which is pre-construction phase. And you can see in a big scheme of things, it's not a huge difference. Option number 3, the church itself is between $3 to $4 million, which is not a huge cost, but again, it's not available. Based on this criteria, option number 1 scored the least because it's a little bit more expensive, around $1.2 million more than option number 2. At the same time, the land is smaller compared to buying a land somewhere else. The third criteria was the schedule of the project, keeping in mind that we need the service building as soon as we can. Having this in mind, looking at option number 1, we can have the service building up and running, serving our kids, our youth, as early as 2020, which is not far from here. The other one, think about it. Once you buy a land somewhere else, you can't start by the service building. You need to start by a church. So our priority, if we go with option number 2, is to build the church first, which will delay when the service building will come. So we just need to keep this in mind. The third one is unknown. It depends on market availability. And according to what we saw in the last year, chances are very low. So based on this criteria, option number 2 and 3 scored the least. The fourth criteria was assets to guarantee the loan that we are going to take to start the project, or to help us with the construction, pay some of the construction cost. So we looked at the current assets I mentioned before, and we have Green Bank land, we have St. Mary Cottage, and we have the daycare. While if you go with a new church somewhere else, you're basically starting from scratch. Based on this criteria, option number 2 and 3 scored the least. Funding source. Think about it. Think about this one. Who's going to fund this project? It's us. So if we stay here, it's basically everybody in the church and everybody that wasn't able to attend today, but everybody belongs to St. Mary will contribute to fund this project. While if you go with option number 2 or 3, which is basically creating a new church, you are kind of splitting the congregation in half. So the burden of the financial cost will be distributed on half the congregation, not on everybody. So based on this criteria, again, option number 2 and 3 score the least. Last but not least, the maintenance cost. If we're going to have a new building, better energy efficient buildings these days compared to the current church, which is almost 25, 30 years old, the maintenance cost will be low for option number 1 and number 2, because there will be new buildings. But for option number 3, the cost of the maintenance will be high. So maybe you're going to save a little bit up front, but we are going to pay it on every month on maintenance cost. So based on this criteria, option number 3 scored the least. Looking at this table now, you can eliminate option number 3 because it's not available. It's basically no different than what we have today. So it's basically recreating the problem again somewhere else, and then we're dealing with face the same issues, same challenges in the future. Before I press the screen, I just want say something very clearly. This is our recommendation as engineering committee. It's not to tell you what to do, as Ramis said. So as engineering committee, we recommend, just based on numbers, we recommend option number 1. But by the end of the day, as you will see, we are seeking your input. We are seeking your feedback to choose between options number 1 and 2. If most of the congregation came back and say, no, we are willing to fund it, we are willing to go ahead and pay more and go with option number 2, by all means, let it be. We are not here to push you one way or the other. If you don't mind, can we just hold the question to the end? Thank you. Thanks. So for financing, keeping option number 1 in mind, just to give you an idea, option number 2 is not far from option number 1 when it comes to finance and when it comes to schedule, except the switch between the church and the service building. So to pay off the debts, this is phase number 0. We need $2.2 million. Then we looked at phase number 1, which is actual construction. We came with 2 options here. One of them is use green bank land to guarantee the mortgage that we're going to take from the bank. And because the cost for option number 1 is for phase number 1 is 8.6 million. Being commercial, we are not residential, the interest rate from the bank on the mortgage will be higher than what we pay for our houses, so it's around 4.5. This is based on meetings with financial institutions, by the way. Amortization can't exceed 20 years, so they said between 15 and 20, we bought 20, so it can reduce our monthly payments. Based on this simple calculations, we are 200 families. To be conservative, this is how engineers think all the time. Being conservative, we assume that only 50% of the congregation is going to contribute financially to this project, which ends up to be around $540 per month per family. Then we looked at what other options we can propose here. The second option was, let's sell green bank land for the $2.5 million. Let's use this as a kick-off for the project when we reach the stage of construction. This way, the $8.6 million will be knocked down to $6.1 million. Same interest, same amortization period. So this will reduce the monthly contribution from each family to $385. So basically, this is our recommendation as an engineering committee, is when we reach the construction phase, let's sell the green bank land and use this to, leapfrog the project, basically. Based on this, just to give you an idea when things can happen, we came up with this project roadmap. 2015, we initiated the project by the establishing of this committee. 2016, which is this year, we completed the feasibility study, as we explained now. And hopefully, once we have your feedback, once we get your decision, we are going to move ahead with the starting of the project, which is buying the houses for option number 1 or buying the land for option number 2. Hopefully, by 2020, we can have the service building up and running and serving our congregation. And we give ourselves a break in our planning between 2020 and 2023 to reevaluate our financial situation and see where we are at that point. Maybe the service building will draw more families to the church, which in turn will increase our revenue. We will pause and reevaluate at this time, and based on this, we can decide to initiate phase number 2, which is starting the church expansion project. So, moving forward. Today was the first presentation, and it's not going to be the last, because we know that we're all busy, so some people weren't able to make it today, and we would love to have everybody hear it directly from us. So, God will, next week, same time, we will have another presentation for people who missed this presentation and would like to be here and hear it from us. And the second one for people that will take this information back home. We know it's a lot of information that we are putting in front of you here. It took us a year to come to this, so I don't expect you to grasp it in half an hour. So you can take this information home, go through it, and if you have more questions, come next week. We'll be here to try to address your questions as best as we can. I'll open the I'll open the floor for questions at the end. So I don't want to break the flow, so people didn't get distracted, but we'll definitely answer your question. We're going to have the presentation available on the church website, so you can go and download it, you can go and review it. This presentation also is recorded, and it's available on the YouTube channel. And we have an information zone downstairs in the basement, where you will have handouts that you can take home, which have all the floor plans. It has some information about the new building, and we'll be down there to answer your questions if you need somebody to talk with you about specific things. So it will be out there. The whole goal is we need to hear from you. We need to understand, what do you think about this project? And the way you are going to collect your feedback will be through voting process. The voting can start today, and it will be open for 4 weeks. So until November 6th, the voting is open. So my recommendation is please don't rush and make a vote one way or the other. Take your time, think about it. It's a big project. It's not something that we should take lightly. So take your time, think about it before you vote. The voting can be done in person downstairs in the basement. And because we need financial support on this one, so no offense to the young generation, but we are limiting voting for 18 years and up because we need to hear from people who can actually commit. The last thing we want to do is to start a project and we won't have enough fund to complete. You can also send your voting by email, and this is the email address, and it will be available on the website of the church as well. The voting is basically 4 questions. The first one is, do you consider the church expansion essential to the future of the church for serving current and future needs? And you just simply choose yes or no. Because we're all different. I don't expect everybody in this church to vote for the same option. To be honest with you, something will be wrong if this happened. I think some people will think one way, some people will think the other, but we need the majority to drive this project forward, support it and drive it forward. Second one is, which option do you recommend? Which option you're willing to support? Option number 1, expand the church here, or option number 2, which is go out and buy new land and buy a new church, build a new church. The third one is, are you willing to support this project financially? So this is a question that, some people can support either option, but they can't support the project financially, which is fine. We just need to hear from you and know who can support us financially and who can't. The last one is a catch-all. If you have any other comments about the plans, about the project in general, please, we're all here to listen to you, to hear what you'd like to say. To prevent redundancy on the voting, because you're going to collect the votes through different weeks, whoever is going to vote, the voting sheet itself have no names, have no IDs, no numbers, nothing. So nobody will never know which option or which direction you voted for. But we are going to collect the name of the people who voted just to make sure on a separate sheet, completely independent, just to see who voted and just prevent duplication if it ever happened. And That's it. This is all what we have to say, and now it's time for questions. Sure. Sorry. Sorry, should get the microphone.
أنا بقالي 40 سنة هنا، ما كانش في كنيسة خالص. ابتدت الكنيسة هنا، ودي الكنيسة دي دشنها بابا شنودة، دشنها البابا شنودة، فالمفروض إنها تبقى موجودة. ثانياً الكنيسة دي فيها أخطاء كتيرة لأنها مش واخداها شركة. لازم شركة علشان لو أي حاجة فيها غلط لازم الشركة مسؤولة عنها. ليه؟ لأن كل واحد عمل فيها بطريقته الخاصة، حتى لو هم انجينيرينج، حتى لو هم لازم تبقى شركة. يعني اللي نفع الدي كير إن خدتها شركة وبنتها، اللي نفع ماري جرجس والأنبا أنطونيوس أخدتها شركة. صحيح أبونا والده كان هو اللي بنى الكنيسة في مصر، وأبونا في ماري جرجس، فهو صحيح عمل الديزاين بتاعها، لكن يعني الشركة هي اللي عملتها. ليه؟ لأن لازم تبقى مسؤولة عنها. أي غلطة، أي رينينج، وبنشوف قد إيه الحاجات اللي بتحصل هنا، هي مسؤولة عنها الشركة، مش الأشخاص، الشركة نفسها. فده اللي أنا كنت عايزة أقوله.
Thanks very much. تنصر, we totally agree with you. الchurch اللي هيبقى ماسك المشروع زي ما ابتدينا دلوقتي, although all of us have a lot of experience in this, in this field, on project management in general, we didn't depend on ourselves when it comes to getting cost estimates, getting plans. We relied on a firm to do this, and this is a plan moving forward. There will be, will be people who are taking care of this project moving forward. We will be just a link between this engineering firm and the church congregation, basically. Merci. Any question?
Do you know the cost of St. George? How much did it cost? Like when you add up all these numbers that you get, it's about 20 million. Okay, how much St. George costed? Do you have a rough or approximate number? So, any number in you?
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was around 12.
12?
But this was done like
Okay.
15 years.
So the time. Another option that there are buildings that's completely like for sale. There was one in our area, but you could buy it and modify it. The people in Toronto do that. I heard about it.
Put the option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could an option maybe.
Vote for the other option. It's the second option.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is not building a new church, but
It's modifying.
modifying an existing building. Not a church, but could be a warehouse, could be any other building, a school. There is, I'll give you a simple example. In our
Can you just
area,
get the close?
in our area, they bought a bank building and they converted it into a mosque. Okay, so
Yeah.
you could buy some existing building. Doesn't have to be a church, and modifying it, you probably will do better in finances. There are churches for sale, but I'm not aware of one that for sale today. But that may take time. So anyway, it's just a.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Good thought. If anybody think that he found a land, a church that can fit our needs, please put it in the option. Send us an email. The work that we did over the full year, we weren't able to find something suitable, not even close to what we were looking for. Option about modifying an existing building, we can look at this one. Although when we looked at the church here, we didn't want to give too much details to get people distracted. But we looked at, is this an option we can start the service building today before we buy the 3 houses? So can we expedite the project? And working with architecture, it was very challenging to modify something that's existing to fit a new building, especially that we are talking about multi-millions dollars here. So if we need to build a new building, we needed to serve our needs. We don't want to stuck with another problem in 5-10 years. So I found it to be challenging, but I'm not going to judge now on this one. Please send us whatever you find on the market, whatever you feel it's appropriate. And within the committee, we are going to look at it. And the promise is we are not going to ignore any of your feedback. If you have something, an idea like this, we are going to look at it and come back with an answer, and we can share with you the findings on this. Someone, the mic.
Then it means that you mean that we wanted to go outside the church and we go to find another place for the church, right? Yeah. This is what you. This is the aim. Yes, the option 2, which is great. Yeah, which is great. I like this idea, but it's only what I have. The support, financial support, that I have only an option. One option only, and I have to close St. Mary.
Well, it's nice to modify that building. It sounds to be the best option. But from financial point of view, that you are asking for $20 million, I don't know how. I don't know if you made a study between the people, a preliminary study where you say the income of the church today is X, and once you go into the project, how much you need. A yearly income, would you need to triple that 4 times? Do you see that feasible? So
Excuse me.
that's the main driver really for all the decisions is the finances.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I believe is what you presented to us is great, and thanks for your effort, but the cost is relatively, in my opinion, high.
Yeah, I totally agree.
If you find a church, there's a lots of churches for sale. If you find one, you could buy it for $1. Literally, there are churches, Catholic today, Anglican, it's empty. So we need to do better job, like trying to find something really that we lower the cost, and maybe it doesn't fit our needs 100%, but maybe 80%.
Yeah, and this is option number. Sorry, and this was option number 3. The church is around $3 to $4 million to buy a church, but if we
just excuse me, Albert.
sure يا بني اتفضل.
Just in a minute, while you are searching, your option, Dr. Fathi, is to open a new church. Look, if it's to open, to establish a new church, not to improve the service of this church. In your suggestion, we have either one of 2 options: to close here and move all there, or split the congregation to have 2 churches. But the problem will still exist. Why? Because when I came here 24 years ago, the church was good for the congregation at that time. But now we have people like Magdi Arias, like the people who were from the beginning, Gamal Nassar, and all the people who were here when I came. Now we have 3 churches in the town. We moved there to the east to establish another church. Our project is not to establish a new church. Our project mainly is to facilitate the services of this church. And we find that even if we open another church, either in Parkdale, مثلا, the St. Mark and the Mary of Egypt church, beside our 2 churches, will come a time when you find that this church with the new splitted number of congregation still needs the expansion. If you think of it, we are not establishing a new church. Your suggestion is to buy a land, to find a church like the church in Parkdale that our brothers now are renting, pretending to buy. And in this case, we will move half of the congregation to the new project. Still, the congregation who are here, still they need. The explanation of Ramos in the beginning, on only our service on Friday, you can't imagine if you can come on Friday, you will find that we are very crowded, compressed. The basement full of the Bible study, Bible school. There is a choir at the same time. There is a youth meeting. There is a Bible study in Arabic. Up here in the church, there is graduate meeting. All of them at the same time. We don't have gym for our children. Up till now, they have to rent some place or go to St. George to share with them the gym. So there are many services. The issue is not the church itself. The issue is the services of the church. Most of the churches that you mentioned, the Anglican church or like the church that our brothers are renting now in Parkdale, there is no facilities. There is no gym. There is no classes for Sunday school. There is no rooms. So, and when you start from scratch, different completely from you modifying an existing building. Fine.
In line with the comments of Abuna, I'd like to add one more thing. Now, if we do that, so we go there, we're going to modify whatever it is, warehouse, Canadian Tire, or whatever it is, to a church, then where is the service building?
You may have to do service building, decided, or it depends on how big it is. Yeah.
That we have a small congregation. It's only the option now that we close St. Mary and we move all to this land. This is only the option that we have because we are a small congregation. If comparing by, for example, Montreal, in St. Joseph, now there are 1,800 families in one church. And now they are looking to split it to 2 churches, okay? This is good. How many families we have here in the church? 150 to 200? Yes, exactly. Then divided by 2, for example, if we can, then they can afford to go to build another church, for example. This is an option. That's why financially, yes, you are right, maybe, but the problem that how also we have assets in our church. We can use it to build assets. We have a lot of assets here. To go for the loan or to go to sell the land, the cottage, we have to go the loan by guarantors from the St. John, for example, daycare. Then we have many options to do it. The problem if we want to really go to other land and buy another land and build a new building, for example, the church and service building, we can do it, which 100% right. But we can't support financially the other church. Our church here can't support the other church. Then what we have to do, we go all the congregation, we close St. Mary, and we sell it. And we go move to other land.
We respect your opinion, Dr. Fathi. We respect it. I'm sorry, I gave an impression as if we are choosing option number. No, we are not imposing the congregation. Choose whatever. I only gave my experience and my opinion without imposing anyone to put his input on that.
I think we had a question at the back here.
I just have something quick because we are already late. For the next meeting, I recommend that we expand on the option analysis to make it more clear, to put the reasoning behind each option, where it came from, based on what we put this option. Maybe we can have a side discussion. Just for the next meeting, it will be more clear where this option came from, what is the reasoning behind it to make it just more clear.
In what way? Just to
For
understand.
the three options that we circled with red,
Yeah.
we need to understand the reasoning behind it.
Magdi.
Okay.
Thanks, first of all, for your effort. I have
pleasure.
only two comments. First of all, on the, the project schedule. You here assuming that we are ready with the service building by 2020. The question, how you guarantee that the other three homes are going to agree to sell the homes? And how, if one of them refuses to sell the home, if the project totally will stop? The second point on the assets to get a loan. I see the chances for the first option and second option are equal. You are giving here the whole success for the first option, but it's equal chances for second and first one. I mean, if you have an asset and you apply for a loan, your option is okay for the first option to be in here in this location or the second location, because you are giving the priority to the first option only, which is, I see it, equal chances for the first option and the second option.
Yeah. This.
Yeah, if you have an asset, not closing, I mean to expand here or to.
We thought about this one, and
I mean, the main concept, if you have an asset and you are applying for a loan, your option to expand here or to expand in other location is the same.
Yeah, I can answer this one because we had this discussion internally in the committee. We are not going to close Santa Mary by any means, right? So this church will stay. So the other option is create another church, open another church, which will be different than Santa Mary. Santa Mary, as it stands today, it's an aging church. It needs lots of maintenance. It needs its own services. So whatever assets in this church will support this church to get a little bit better in serving the congregation. That's why these assets will not be available for option number 2.
You mean if they decide for option 2 to get a new land with new buildings, St. Mary will not assist the project?
Not financially, because they have their own plans. If we are not going to buy a building here, the congregation in this church, because not everybody is going to be moving to the new church. So the congregation in this church need to have some services.
And for the first point, for the time frame, please, do you have any comment on that? That you guarantee by 2020 that...
I'm not guaranteeing. This is, when you start a project, you do your best planning and you say, if things works well, if the 3 houses are available and we are able to collect the money, the construction phase will take only 2 years to complete the building, including the city studies and everything.
No, the point is, do you guarantee that the 3 homes will sell to you, or one of them might say no,
Could be. In this case, we might eliminate this house
So we are
from the
building
plan.
the whole study on suggestions. You have nothing guaranteed.
Because to guarantee it, we have to buy the buildings and the houses. And we don't want to buy the houses.
You are giving a priority on time frame by 2020. On suggestions, you don't have really time frame.
It's based on, if we buy a new land, the church will come before the service building.
That's
this
fine.
is the reasoning for the...
Even with the church and the service building, you still can have it in a time frame lower than the 4 years. If you start now, 4 years is fair enough to have both buildings ready by 2020.
Yeah, if you have the finances, definitely.
This is guaranteed.
Yeah.
And this is
Definitely.
guaranteed. But again, you're still assuming something not in hand.
Yeah.
Something in others' hand. Like,
Yeah.
again, if 1 or 2 of them refuse to sell their homes, we are stuck. Am I correct or no?
Sure.
I'll just answer this one, Magdi.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, what this study is basically to know if we should pursue the purchase of the other houses or stop, because we already now own 3 houses. And that could be a burden on the church because of the mortgage. So we don't want to create another burden on the church by buying the 3 houses, and then we look at the study and then ask the congregation, should we go ahead or should we stop? So now why we want to do the study now and put that investment. It's not a big investment, but we did it, time and money-wise, to know if we should pursue the purchase of the other houses or not. But you're absolutely right. Maybe one of the 3 houses say, no, I'm not going to sell. And that will delay the project until we can buy it, or we can look into another plan, which is buying an adjacent house. And just to tell you, I think like some of the owners already approaching the church. But we don't want to do anything, we don't want to say anything until we know the commitment of the congregation. So you are right that it may delay the project, but this is the step we're doing the feasibility study to know if we should buy them or we should stop buying any more houses.
Thank you.
Okay, the question is about how many parking spots we have now and how many parking spots will be in the new building, which is a great question. Currently, we have around 60 parking spots. When we approached the city, the architecture firm told us we are going to minimize the number of parking spots just to please the city with the number of parking spots. But we're starting with 110 parking spots. But our plan on the final design is to increase the number of parking spots. But 150, something like this is our target, something like this.
Not very difficult. Now let's talk about other issue. How this church will going to be expanded or bigger? How this will be done? It was not clear in the how is it all going to demolish? It's going to expand. What's going to be done in this church?
Good point. Yeah, I'll get the drawing.
It's a great question. The idea that we had is we'll have to deconstruct the current frame of the church, so for us to build a larger church, wider, higher, and longer church. If we keep the same frame and just extending the church with the same height, we're going to end up by having people at the end of the church that can't hear, can't see anything, can't follow. Because as you see, it's an aspect ratio, basically. So idea is to deconstruct the current timber frame, come up with a new steel frame or concrete frame that would allow us to go higher with domes, longer, as well as wider.
Normally, I never see any church going to demolish the church. This is very simple. Yet, either expand it or demolish it. I never see any church in my life demolished. I feel option number 2 is the best. We keep this church as it is, and we expand ourselves to other church in the south, where is the majority of the community living in the south of Fallowfield. So,
and that's already option number 2, and you're right, I see your point.
We keep this church.
Okay, but what's going to happen, think of it that way. Okay, if we keep the church, St. Mary Church, that has been already 25 years, with basically no extensions, what are we doing with this church? This church is going to see a lot of other people coming. Do you agree with me or not?
No, other people will not coming to live in this area. No homes are going to build in this area. All the extension going to the south and to Kanata. Look to the map, how's the extension? Look to the map of the congregation here for the last 10 years. 10 years ago, a lot of people were living here and they moved to the south. No homes here. No new homes. All the people are moving to the south. This is the expansion.
Okay, all I'm saying, and that's what we have already explained, there is option number 2, we can go for it. If that's the consensus of everybody, we can go for option number 2. All I'm saying is, St. Mary would still need a lot of services that we have not met. What are we going to do with that?
We can keep both. Look, Mississauga, they established 9 churches and still under one management.
But
one church. All the 9 churches are one church.
Well, that's right. I was just saying option number 2 is still a valid option. I agree with you.
I am completely against demolishing or removing or selling this church. This has a history for 25 or more than 30 years here.
If we are
50 years and then you come to say me.
just a second.
No, the church itself is a history for everyone here for 30 years or 40 years. This is something very important. I never see in my life church demolished or to be destroyed to be bigger. I remember when I was kid at the 60 in St. George Church in Heliopolis. This church tried to make it bigger, and it was a disaster. In this time, I remember someone came from the city say, don't do it, it's going to demolish. Some schedule and church built with this design, we need to keep it. It's our culture.
It's okay, I see your point. Well, let me ask you this. If we go to Pope Tawadros and ask him about this option of demolishing the existing church to make it wider to serve the congregation, and if he agrees on it, do you still like...
It's up to you. It's up to you. If this is not the issue, the people...
No, I'm saying, I'm just saying.
Get the people opinion here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
For
Okay.
30 years.
But we're gonna still need a service building. That's all I'm saying.
We have, the funny thing is we had the same debate internally within our committee. Some people were very emotionally attached to the church, and we understand that, and we take this in consideration. And that's why we didn't say, we are going with option one and no feedback from congregation. That's why we are here. If most of the people come back and say option one is off the table, let it be. We will go with option number two. This is our
But still
stand.
we have to keep this church for the people at least
Of course.
living in this area.
Of course.
We don't demolish it or sell it.
If we will choose option number two, then St. Mary stays the same. Yes.
That's clear. That's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Everyone will be happy with this.
But again, we are different. People have different opinions. That's why we're asking for voting. That's why we're asking for feedback.
Anyway, it's a great representation. It's a great project, but
it's not about
it doesn't
that.
make so much for the church and for the people. What does it mean if you increase the parking spot 100%? It doesn't make any difference. Still, people will not find any parking.
Yeah. As we said, this is to get the approval from the city. As someone said, we don't want to keep spending money and buying houses without a plan. In the last few years, people were asking, why you keep buying houses? Will the city say no about this project? There's lots of unknowns. So we try to address some of these unknowns and come up with these options.
Something important that we are missing, the main driver for our decision will be finances here, okay? So it would be nice to say option number one, we have X amount of money, we have to borrow Y. Every family, assuming 150 or 200, has to be committed for the next 20 years with X amount of money. And people have to vote for that. Repeat the same for option number two and option number three. This is I would say, the most deciding factor. You can buy a Cadillac car, but if you haven't got the money, you cannot buy it. So finances is number one, and we should consider it.
By the way, without looking at your hand, I would know that you're an engineer from the way you're talking.
Yes, no, it doesn't matter how good the option is.
Yeah.
But if the finances does not drive, and I need you to come back and say you can afford only buying a Honda or an old Honda. Don't think about the Cadillac, don't think about BMW. We need that kind of a study to tell us this is what we can afford. Don't think about a bigger church or whatever. If it is, some people at the beginning, they prayed in a house, in a basement of a house. So whether we like it or not, these are the finances, and that's what we can afford. That has to be clear to everyone.
Okay, which is a great point, and the reason I was saying that I knew right away that you're an engineer, because engineers get criticized that we are the sons of Martha. Martha and Mary in Jesus' story. The engineers are criticized to be the sons of Martha, that we're always thinking about numbers, about what's feasible, what's not feasible. So I can see this from the way you're talking. But you saw the other side of the story is people are emotionally attached to the church. So, yeah.
Okay, Fathi, the most effective solution from cost-wise is to go to option 3. But what we have explained right here, it's very because the church itself would cost us almost $3-4 million. We're talking about a church that is built like 60 years ago. $3-4 million. So if we go that way, then we're investing millions of dollars in a piece of building that we need to maintain, and that's capital costs over 20 years to come. It's not a solution. Okay,
that's why we eliminated it.
So that's what we were saying right here. If we go that route, we're going to end up by having a church, maybe some parking spots around it, right? But we don't have any services. We are recreating the same history we started with, right? What we're looking for, I'm for one, I want to stay in St. Mary. That's my opinion, right? It doesn't mean that all of you have to share with me the same opinion. And that's why we have the voting thing. Again, I'm for one, I would love to stay in St. Mary. I would love that my children stay in St. Mary, have some services in St. Mary, and have some, a service building or classrooms for Sunday school and so and so. Now, back to Bashmohandis Nashat, okay, opinion. Option number 2 is a valid option 100%, okay? If that is the opinion of the congregation, we're gonna go to option number 2, no questions. But all I'm saying is, if we do that, if that's 75% of the congregation saying that, that means that St. Mary would still be here, but it will still need a service building, because the youth in St. Mary need to have places, and they don't have these places. They have a church, they don't have a service. We share with the other. St. Mark, okay, we're sharing, our youth is sharing with St. George, that's great, but St. Mark don't have a service building too. So they are sharing with St. Mark?
I don't know. I have an idea. I don't know if it's right or wrong. What about the land on Green Bank to make it service building? And actually the transportation, it will not be that hard if just by big car to transport the kids there, or it's 2 minutes from here. And we can expand this church too by two building houses or something, to just expand this.
Green Bank land is not.
Service building we need. We can take this land on Green Bank and use it as a service building.
Green Bank land, by the way, is not that big. It's not that large.
It will not be enough for service building?
No. It's only 2 houses. So you can't have a gym, you'll not be able to build a reasonable sized building in this land, unfortunately.
Okay.
Okay, shall the zoning as well. Okay, shall we continue downstairs in the info zone? Do you mind? Sure.
The idea is excellent. The project is big in time and cost. I can see the timing for the presentation is excellent, but timing for discussion is really bad after the Mass on Sunday. As you see, we lost half of the congregation because some people has strong opinion, has ideas, has experience, has backgrounds. So I will encourage to have another focused meeting away from after the liturgy, just for the people who are interested, who have the experience, who have opinion, This way we can put everything on the table and we can expand for the next time when we discuss. Some people will just go with what we agree on. But those who has ideas, we put everything on the table with more detailed option analysis to the project with pros and cons, and we should come with an open-minded that we will always have the idea and the opposite idea.
Yeah,
so we have to agree with the majority, but after through study in more details with more people who are interested.
Yeah.
During the week. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a great idea. We're planning to do focus meetings, focus presentation for the group of youth, graduate, family, during families. We're gonna try to explain the project into more details to these groups individually. Yes, and we're gonna repeat the same presentation, taking into account your comments and feedbacks next week, and if needed, the week after as well.
محبة الله الآب ونعمة ابن وصال المسيح وشركة موهبة الروح القدس تكون مع جميعكم. امضوا بسلام وسلام الرب يكون مع جميعكم.
For any high school parents that are still in the building, if you want to grab any food or anything very quickly and shortly just meet us over at St. John's building on the top floor. We'll hopefully start by around 12:20.